I first noticed him on our second night, the neighbor across the street who never blinked. He sat on his porch like a statue, facing our living room window, a mug cooling beside his elbow, eyes fixed on our glass, as if it were a screen only he could see. At 2:07 a.m., when the street went dead silent and the cicadas cut out like someone pulled a plug, he lifted 2 fingers and tapped his watch. I laughed then, new house jitters, right? Until I found the note under our doormat at dawn. Don't leave your doors open after 2 a.m. It wasn't the warning that scared me. It was the damp ring on the paper, perfectly the size of a mug, and the faint smell of our laundry detergent. We'd been in the house for 36 hours, and half our life was still in boxes. The neighborhood was exactly the kind of place I used to dream about when we were stuck in our cramped apartment. Quiet cul-de-sac, big elm trees that looked like something from a postcard, lawns that all seemed just a little too perfect, as if someone curated them for a magazine cover. The house itself was old but beautiful. Hardwood floors that creaked softly under our steps, windows that caught the afternoon light and filled the living room with this golden glow that made Ethan whistle every time he walked in. It felt safe, or at least it was supposed to. That morning, after finding the note, I just stood there on the porch in my hoodie and socks, staring at the rocking chair across the street. It was empty, but swaying slightly, as if someone had just been sitting there seconds ago. No wind. No movement anywhere else on the street. Just that slow, lazy sway. When Ethan woke up, I didn't mention the note. I wanted to, but I could already picture the look he'd give me. The "you're overthinking this" grin that always made me feel silly. So I shoved the note into the pocket of my hoodie and started making coffee instead. Feels different waking up here, Ethan said as he padded into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. Like the air's cleaner. You notice that? I forced a smile and handed him a mug. He wrapped his arms around me from behind while I stared out the kitchen window at the street. Still empty. Still too quiet. By afternoon, we were knee-deep in unpacking. I tried to lose myself in the sound of bubble wrap popping, cardboard tearing, Ethan humming along to some playlist on his phone. For a while, I managed to forget about the note. But every time I passed the living room window, my eyes drifted to that porch across the street. That's when I saw him again. Middle of the day, broad sunlight. But there he was, same chair, same posture, same mug on the railing. He wasn't reading a paper or scrolling his phone. He wasn't even pretending not to stare. His head was turned directly toward our house. Toward me. I froze with a stack of plates in my hands. Tried to pretend I was just stretching my back, looking at the street casually. But my pulse was already drumming in my ears. When I glanced back a second later, the porch was empty. No sound of a door closing. No footsteps. Just gone. I told myself maybe he just went inside quickly. Maybe he had things to do. People sit on porches in small towns, right? It's normal. It's fine. But that night, when Ethan fell asleep next to me, I couldn't shake the image of that man sitting out there, staring. So I stayed awake. At first, the house was full of little noises, the hum of the fridge, the ticking of the ceiling fan, the faint rustle of leaves outside. But as the clock on my phone crept toward 2 a.m., everything seemed to stop. The cicadas cut out. The night air felt heavy, like a blanket pressed over the house. Even Ethan's breathing beside me sounded too loud. Then, tap, tap, 2 soft knocks. Not on the front door. Somewhere outside. Wood against wood. I slid out of bed, heart thundering, and crept to the living room window. Pulled the curtain just enough to see outside. He was there. Same chair. Same mug. Only this time, his head tilted like he was listening to something. Like he could hear my breath even through the glass. Then he turned his face toward me and smiled. Not a friendly smile. Not a neighborly, welcome to the neighborhood. A slow, stretched smile that made my stomach twist. I dropped the curtain like it was on fire. Pressed my back against the wall, heart hammering so hard it hurt. When I peeked again, he was gone. Porch empty. Chair still swaying. And then something thudded softly against our front door. Once. Twice. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Because whoever, or whatever, was outside at 2 a.m. wasn't knocking to come in. It was letting me know it was already here. I barely slept after the smile. When the first thin light of morning slid between the blinds, I was already sitting up with the covers bunched in my fists, listening for the house to breathe like a normal house again. The cicadas came back slowly, like someone turning a dial. Birds dared a few thin notes. The refrigerator hum smoothed out. Normal returned by degrees, as if it had to climb over something heavy to reach us. Ethan padded into the doorway with sleep-creased cheeks and a hopeful grin. "Coffee?" he asked, offering me a mug with a little flourish. "Thanks." My voice sounded amused. He leaned against the frame, searching my face. "Rough night." "New place jitters," I said too quickly and sipped. The coffee was a little burnt, a little sweet. Ethan's comfort blend. He watched me for another beat, then decided not to push. "I'm going to run back to the apartment," he said. "Dresser, the plant you love, the toolbox. If traffic's decent, I'll be back by late afternoon." A thin wire of fear tightened in my chest. "You don't have to do it today. If we don't do it now, we'll never do it." He stepped in, kissed my forehead, left a small sun warmth behind. "You good here?" I nodded. I wasn't, but I nodded. After he left, the house felt larger. The rooms echoed differently when I walked through them, my footsteps sharp on the wooden floor. I unpacked for a while just to fill the silence, tearing tape from boxes, stacking dishes, hanging a few pictures. But every time I passed a window, my eyes strayed across the street. Nothing. His porch sat empty, the chair perfectly still this time, which somehow made it worse. Around noon, I finally worked up the courage to step outside. The air was warm and still, smelling faintly of fresh-cut grass and someone grilling 2 streets over. I crossed the street slowly, pretending to check the mailbox, pretending I wasn't walking straight toward that porch. Up close, the house looked older than I expected. Paint peeling from the railing, steps a little crooked, screen door hanging slightly off its hinge. The mug was gone, but a faint wet ring stained the wood where it had been. I jumped when I heard a voice. "You shouldn't bother with that one," a woman said quietly. I turned. An older woman in a sun hat was walking a little white dog. She didn't slow her pace but flicked her eyes toward the porch, then away just as fast. "What do you mean?" I called after her. She shook her head and tugged her dog faster. "Just don't," she said, almost a whisper. And then she was gone, leaving me standing there with goosebumps on my arms despite the heat. That afternoon felt endless. I tried to distract myself, made lunch, turned on music, but every song felt too loud. Every creak of the house made me glance over my shoulder. Once, I swore I heard a floorboard groan in the hallway behind me, but when I turned, no one was there. By late afternoon, I was so keyed up that I nearly screamed when my phone buzzed. It was Ethan. "Stuck in traffic. Might not be back until late. You okay?" I stared at the message for a long moment before typing back. "Yeah, fine." It was a lie. When night came, I locked every door, every window. Checked them twice. Turned on every light in the house, even though it felt ridiculous. The clock seemed to crawl toward midnight, each minute stretching longer than the last. By 1 a.m., my heart was already racing. By 1:30, I was sitting on the couch with my knees pulled up, staring at the front door. And then it happened again. The sound, that impossible drop into silence. Cicadas cutting out, leaving the night hollow. I stood slowly, every muscle tight, and crept to the living room window. He was there. Not on his porch, on the sidewalk. Closer than before. His head was tilted slightly, like he was listening for something only he could hear. I held my breath. Then, so slowly I almost missed it, his mouth moved. "It's almost time," he said. I stumbled backward, knocking over the lamp. The crash echoed too loud in the silent house. When I looked again, he was gone. The chair across the street rocked once, twice, then stilled. And then came the sound that froze the blood in my veins. The slow, deliberate creak of our back door handle turning. Once, twice, then a pause, and a faint whisper through the crack of the door, low enough that I almost thought I imagined it. "Are you awake?" I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. The sound of the back door handle turning was soft, almost polite, like whoever was on the other side wasn't in any hurry to get in. The house felt too small for how loud my heartbeat was. I was sure he could hear it, even through the door. And then it stopped. Silence. But not normal silence, the kind that hums with power, like the house itself was waiting. I forced my legs to move, one slow step back, then another, until I was standing in the middle of the living room, staring toward the kitchen where the door was hidden in shadow. My phone was on the coffee table. I dove for it like it was oxygen and dialed Ethan with shaking hands. 1 ring. 2. He picked up on the third, his voice warm but groggy. "Hey, what's wrong?" Someone's at the back door, I hissed. My throat felt raw just saying it. There was a pause on the other end, just long enough for my stomach to drop. Lock it. Right now. I did. It's still. Before I could finish, there was a long, deliberate scrape against the wood, like metal dragged slowly across the door. The sound was so sharp and wrong that it made my teeth ache. Ethan, I whispered, clutching the phone like a lifeline. Please come home right now. I'm 20 minutes out. Stay inside. Don't open anything. The line crackled once, then went dead. No service. I stared at the screen like I could will the bars to come back. Nothing. The house seemed to close in on me. Every shadow felt thicker, every creak louder. I swallowed hard and crept toward the kitchen, my bare feet making almost no sound on the floorboards, though every step felt like I was stepping on glass. The back hallway was dark. I could see the outline of the door, just a shape against deeper black. Then, asterisk tap, tap, tap. Asterisk. 3 slow knocks on the glass. I froze. It wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It was worse, like a friend testing to see if you're awake before they come in. I stumbled backward, bumping into the counter, grabbing the first thing my hand landed on, a kitchen knife. My reflection in the dark window looked pale, eyes too wide. Minutes passed. I stood there, knife raised, until my arms ached. Finally, I heard something new, footsteps. Slow, heavy, not rushing away. Walking along the porch, toward the side of the house. I dropped into a crouch and crept to the living room, pulling the curtain just a fraction. He was there, closer than ever, standing in the middle of my backyard now, his figure just a dark outline against the grass. The porch light caught his face enough that I could see the corners of his mouth pull into that same terrible smile. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run upstairs, lock myself in the bathroom, but I couldn't move. Then he did something worse than smiling. He raised one hand, not waving, not pointing, just held it up like he was swearing an oath. And then he slowly pressed his finger to his lips. Shoo! My stomach dropped so hard I thought I'd be sick. I stumbled backward, knocking the lamp over with a crash that shattered the silence. When I looked back, he was gone. The yard was empty. The grass looked untouched, as if no one had been there at all. My breathing was too loud, ragged. I ran through the house, locking every window again, even though I knew I had already done it. I pushed a chair under the front door handle. I found the heaviest flashlight we owned and clutched it like a weapon. The hours crawled. Every creak of the old house made me jump. I thought I heard whispering once, faint, like someone talking just outside the window. When I looked, there was nothing. Finally, when I couldn't stand it anymore, I gathered enough courage to check the kitchen again. The back door was closed, locked, but on the kitchen table, right in the center, was a mug. Not ours. A plain white mug, still steaming as if it had just been set down. Beside it, a folded piece of paper. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost tore it when I picked it up. The note read, almost, tomorrow night. I staggered back, heart hammering. The air in the kitchen felt wrong, damp, like wet earth. A faint smell of coffee hung in the air, stronger than it should have been. And then I saw it, muddy footprints. They started at the back door, crossed the kitchen floor, and stopped right next to where I was standing. But there were no prints leading back out, which meant whoever had left the mug was still inside the house. My breath caught as I stared at the muddy footprints. They ended just a few feet from me, pointed directly toward where I was standing, and then they stopped. No turn, no retreat, no exit. It felt like whoever made them had vanished into thin air. I forced myself to move, one trembling step at a time. My fingers were white around the kitchen knife. The house seemed to hold its breath with me. I started with the pantry, flung the door open so hard it banged against the wall. Empty. Then the laundry room. Only the hum of the dryer and the faint smell of detergent. The dining room. Too quiet. The chairs perfectly still like no one had ever sat there. By the time I reached the bottom of the stairs, my breathing was ragged. That's when I heard it. A creak. One floorboard. Above me. I froze, knife raised, listening so hard my ears rang. Then another creak, farther away, like someone shifting their weight carefully, testing which boards would betray them. I forced my legs to climb the stairs, one at a time, my pulse hammering in my throat. Halfway up, the sound stopped. I reached the hallway and looked left, then right. Every shadow seemed deeper, as though the house had grown more corners while I wasn't looking. Our bedroom door stood open just a crack. I knew I had closed it earlier. I nudged it open with the knife. The room was empty, but the curtains stirred faintly even though the window was shut. The air was warmer here, heavier, as if someone had been standing there just seconds ago. I stepped inside. That's when I heard it, a breath. Behind me. I spun, slashing at the air, hard in my throat. Nothing. But something shifted in the hallway, a shadow darting out of sight. I lunged toward it, nearly tripping over the rug, and ran into the hall. Footsteps pounded away from me, fast, heading toward the stairs. Hey! The word tore from my throat before I could stop it. No answer. I chased the sound, my bare feet sliding on the hardwood, and reached the top of the stairs just in time to hear the back door bang shut. I sprinted down, slammed it closed, and threw the deadbolt, chest heaving. Outside, the yard was empty. The rocking chair across the street swayed lazily as if someone had just stood up from it. I didn't realize I was crying until the tears blurred my vision. I double-checked every door, every window, dragged chairs in front of both entrances, found the heaviest flashlight we owned and gripped it in my left hand, knife in the right. That's when headlights swept across the living room. Ethan, I nearly sobbed with relief, unlocking the door and yanking it open before he even reached the porch. What happened? His voice was sharp with alarm when he saw me, barefoot, shaking, armed. He was here, I said, the words spilling out of me in a rush. Inside the house. I heard him upstairs. Ethan, I chased him. He got out the back door. He grabbed my shoulders. Slow down. Who was here? The neighbor. My voice cracked. He left footprints, a mug, a note. Okay. His hand stayed firm on my arms. We'll check the house together. Right now. We moved through every room, upstairs and down. No footprints. No mug. No note. The back door was still locked tight. Maybe it was a delivery guy? Ethan offered gently. At 2 in the morning? With this? I snapped, too loud, and shoved my hand toward the empty kitchen table where the mug had been. He said nothing, but the look on his face told me everything. He thought I was imagining it. My chest tightened, anger and fear tangling until I could barely breathe. Fine, I said. You believe what you want. But something is happening here. He didn't argue. Instead, he stayed up with me, sitting in the living room with the TV muted while I paced from window to window, checking the locks again. Around 3 a.m., when I finally sat down, I noticed something new. A smell. Coffee. Fresh, hot coffee, drifting from the hallway like someone had just brewed a pot. I stood slowly. Do you smell that? Ethan sniffed the air. No, but I did. Stronger with every step I took toward the bedroom. And when we reached the room, we both stopped cold. Our bed was covered in photographs. Not just one, a dozen of them, maybe more, laid out in perfect order, all from the box we hadn't unpacked yet. Every picture had a red circle drawn around me, just me, in careful, deliberate strokes. And in the center of the bed sat a single mug. Steam curled from it into the night air. Ethan swore under his breath and stepped forward, but I grabbed his arm. There was writing on the sheet beneath the mug. Faint, like it had been scrawled with a wet finger. See you soon. The room felt colder all at once. From outside came the creak of the rocking chair. Once, twice, then silence, so complete it felt like the house itself was listening. We didn't sleep after the photographs. Not even for a minute. Ethan wanted to pack our bags and leave that night, but I couldn't make myself move. If we run now, we never come back, I said quietly. This is our house. I need to know what's happening. I need to see it through. So we stayed. We checked every door again, shoved chairs under the handles, locked every window twice. By 1:30 a.m., we were sitting on the living room floor with the lights off, backs pressed against the wall, holding hands so tightly my fingers ached. The silence in the house felt like a living thing, pressing on our skin. At 1:42, I swore I heard whispering upstairs. Ethan said it was just the pipes. At 1:49, the hallway light flickered once and died, though the bulb was brand new. At 1:56, Ethan checked his watch, then glanced at me. 3 minutes, he mouthed. The cicadas didn't fade out this time. They snapped off like a switch had been thrown. The air grew heavy. 2 a.m. The house made a sound. Not a creak, but something deeper, like the wooden frame of its side. Then a single floorboard groaned above us. We rose together. Ethan grabbed the flashlight. I gripped the knife. Our bedroom door stood wide open, even though we had shut it earlier. The bed was covered with photographs again, but now they were arranged in a perfect circle with me at the center of every picture. In the middle of the circle sat a mug, steam curling in the dark. Something knocked from downstairs. 3 slow taps, patient. We crept down and saw the bookcase we'd wedged in front of the basement door shaking slightly, as though someone was leaning against it from the other side. The door handle turned once, twice, and then the lock slid back on its own. A cold draft rolled out. We pushed the bookcase aside and opened the door, the air from below smelling of earth and rust. Step by step, we descended into the basement. The flashlight beam quivered in Ethan's hand, cutting through the dark until it landed on the chair. The same chair from the porch, now sitting in the exact center of the concrete floor. It rocked once, then stopped. A shadow shifted in the far corner. He stepped into the light. The neighbor. His face was pale, eyes too bright, smile stretched too wide. "I told you not to leave your doors open," he said softly, like we were children who had broken a rule. Ethan tightened his grip on the flashlight. "Why are you here?" The man tilted his head. "Because you stayed. And now you can see." "See what?" My voice shook. He smiled wider. "What comes through the doors?" Before I could ask, the basement light bulb above us popped. We were plunged into darkness. Footsteps circled us. Slow. Measured. Too close. I grabbed Ethan's arm. "We have to go." We bolted up the stairs, slammed the basement door, through the lock, but before I could breathe, something slid under the door. A photograph. Me and Ethan asleep in our bed, taken tonight. I screamed and ran for the front door. The chair we'd wedged there was still in place, but the lock was open. We yanked the door wide and stumbled onto the porch. The night air felt electric, buzzing under my skin. Across the street, the rocking chair moved by itself, faster now, back and forth. Then it stopped. Ethan grabbed my arm. "Car. Now." We sprinted to the driveway, gravel crunching under our feet. The car's lights blinked when Ethan hit the key fob. We dove inside, slammed the doors, locked them. For a moment, I thought we were safe. Then a wet handprint bloomed on the passenger window from the inside. My stomach dropped. I turned my head slowly. On the back seat lay every photograph from the bed, spread in a perfect circle around an empty spot in the middle. And in that empty spot sat the mug. Steam rose from it. A note was taped to the rim. "Tomorrow night, the doors stay open." Outside, the house lights flickered on by themselves, all of them, glowing warm and inviting. And across the street, the neighbor stepped back into view, smiling, before he sat in the rocking chair once more and began to sway. The engine started on its own, and the clock on the dashboard flipped to 2:07.